Welcome to another edition of the Buck the World podcast with your hosts Bill Canzaneri and Alexander Juno. How you doing today, Al?
I'm doing pretty good.
That's good. We've had enough time to recover from the sadness that happened after a pretty tough 4 losses in a row, a Game 6 nail biter, eliminated, going home, uh, ready for the off season.
Yeah, I would say it almost felt expected. It almost felt like it was the ultimate Bucks fan experience to be hit with disappointment when you least expect it, but also most expect it.
That's true. What was there was an old phrase that, never trust the Bucks that we used to use. I thought we were past that. I thought this was the year. They were historically good in many senses. Um, there were a lot of historical statistics on their side that they would, at least make it to the finals. And that's where my expectations ended up about midseason. And I know we talked about this a little bit before the start of the podcast, but they definitely exceeded my preseason expectations, which were around 50 wins. What about you?
I thought they would win 50 games, and they won 60. And if you count postseason games, they won 70. So take that to the bank.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome. It was awesome to watch. But I have there are some serious issues I had with that Raptors series. Definitely, I'll start with I my let's do like major factors in losing the series. Why we lost after a tough game one where we are mostly outplayed, but we came out the better team, and game two where we pretty much put the pedal to the metal and won that game pretty handily. And after that, it was kind of sort of all downhill from there. But what were the major factors in losing the series for you?
Giannis not playing like a top 5 player. Eric Bledsoe not playing like a top 25 point guard. Mike Budenholzer doing a couple of things that I didn't care for or appreciate. Nikola Mirotic forgetting how to shoot the basketball. Those would be the big ones.
For me, it's your first three are my major factors, and Mirotic is kind of more of a minor factor.
He took
because he did. He forgot how to make shots. And I thought he would have a regression game at some point, and he didn't. But I think that's really on Bud. He needs to make that change much faster. He made that change with Sterling after game one of this. Well, he actually got hurt, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he tweaked his wrist. I guess it was
You were going to make a horrible argument. Actually, he tweaked his back.
It was his back. Oh, you mean that the Mirotic change helped the Celtics or helped us beat the Celtics?
No.
Is that what would have been my horrible argument?
No, you were going to say that the Sterling Brown thing happened because he was shooting poorly.
No,
it happened because of an injury.
I don't think that at all. I did think having Mirotic on the floor helped spread the floor a little bit in that series, more than Sterling, but I don't think it made a massive difference. Mirotic wasn't particularly great in that series either. I mean, he was much worse in this series. But anyways, I think that I mean, my number one issue besides Bledsoe playing poorly, because like he can't. The way I look at it is he can't control playing poorly. Like obviously he was trying to play not poorly, but with Mike Budenholzer, he had a flawed logic in his approach to some decision making that he still stuck to in when he's talking about the series retroactively, that really worries me going forward. That's my primary concern. Giannis is going to get better. I have no doubt about that. Bledsoe, I don't know if he's going to be good in the playoffs again, but I know he's going to try to be good in the playoffs again if we don't move him, which I think is highly unlikely. But Budenholzer, I don't know. Like,
You're kind of going all over the place. Let's do this one at a time. Bledsoe can control that he plays poorly. When you're making poor passes and poor reads and not able to make the correct reads and run plays and make timely passes, that sort of stuff is all controllable. Like, he can and should be better. He gets unnecessarily sped up by Kyle Lowry, of all people, and just kind of makes a fool out of himself at times with his decision making. I don't know. For me, it's very tough to accept that Bledsoe's as bad of a passer as he is. Like, he's probably the third best passer in our starting lineup.
yes, I agree with that.
Sort of de facto. Congrats on being better than our monstrous center and our tunnel vision shooting guard. Luckily, he gets to dribble the ball a lot, so he gets some assists. I think that's what really killed the Bucks. His jump shooting sucks. Maybe he can't control that necessarily, but he's been better in his career than he has been this season, and it was really bad. It was really bad all year. He kind of had a little bit of a hot stretch at the end, and then he was kind of bad in the playoffs. He might have had 3 good games across how many playoff games did we play? 15.
I mean, he was fine against the Pistons, but he didn't stand out because the Pistons were just they're not that great of a basketball team. So, like, it's the Pistons. So, but I mean, to what you said, to clarify on Bledsoe, obviously he can and should be better as a basketball player. He should at least be as good as he was in the regular season. But there's no doubt in my mind that he consistently wanted to play better. Like,
what does that even mean?
Well, he's going. I don't even know how to put it, I guess, but no,
I don't really care what he wants. I care what he's doing.
Well, no. That's no. Of course, I care that he played poorly, and it's upsetting, and he was bad. But what I'm saying is, after the game, every single time he was probably beating himself up. He's like, I got to play better, but he never did. Because he was in his own head, because he's a mental player. Like, he's got to be better, yes. But Mike Budenholzer, after the game, is talking about he didn't have issues with his logic. Like, so that concerns me, because he's not trying to make steps to improve himself. Obviously, Bledsoe's a concern, but I'm saying Budenholzer, for me, was the number one concern. Bledsoe being the second most important concern for me.
Giannis was my number one concern.
But he's going to
Giannis or Budenholzer next.
I mean, Giannis is going to improve. So let's talk about Giannis.
What was frustrating for me is that Giannis couldn't make in-series adjustments to beat the way that he was being defended. In the past, I felt like we see him sort of game to game improve. If a team throws a defense at him, and then he sees that type of look in the next game, he's able to make the adjustments, make the passes, make the decisions on when to attack the rim much more intelligently than he was able to in this series. So I expected, after they changed his coverage in game 3 with the Kawhi Leonard look and the immediate double, that okay, he's going to come out in game 4 and he's going to beat it. And then he didn't in game 4. And I was like, okay, well, we're transitioning back to home now. He'll make the adjustment he has to, and he'll be able to make that read. He didn't. And in game 6, it was more of the same. He struggled to exist as a playmaker and as a scorer. We never really got a statement Giannis game where he was like, I'm here. This is what's going on. This is what's happening. He sort of never influenced his will on the game. I thought we were going to see it in game 5. He came out strong and had 5 assists in the first quarter. He had 1 assist for the rest of the game. So that wasn't it. And to me, that's incredibly worrisome, because eventually in every series, he's going to see a different coverage. if they had made the finals, he was going to see a different coverage. And if he can't adjust in series to that coverage, if the plan is always, I'll figure it out in the off season, they're never going to win a title. You have to be able to adjust in series.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. He was a +3 in Game 6, and I think if he would have played a little bit more, I think we would have actually won Game 6. But like, yeah, he needs to improve on the offensive side of the ball. There was one thing that after his offensive performances in the series that there was a statement from, I don't know which NBA player, which analyst, who was talking about how great he thought Giannis could be. Obviously, he's great now, but he said the one area where, to me, when I'm watching Giannis, needs to improve, and it also makes sense based on the fact he hasn't played basketball very long, is his feel for the game and when he needs to be aggressive, when he needs to be a little bit more wild, and more consistent. Maybe you can put it into better words than that, but I thought that stuck out, especially in the Raptors series.
I think this idea that feel for the game improves the longer you play the game can be disingenuous and misleading. You can look at like two guys drafted the year after Giannis, and Jabari Parker and Andrew Wiggins, who have been playing basketball since they were 3 or 4. They have terrible feel for the game. They don't ever seem to understand when to pick their spots, when to go, when to pass, when to play defense. So I think that sort of argument is misleading, that because Giannis is late to basketball, he'll continue to improve his feel for the game. What separates Giannis from most players is his feel for the game. He has a great feel for the game. I'm just not sure it's that transcendent type of feel that some Bucks fans are perhaps hoping it is. Whereas somebody like LeBron sees the passing windows before they open and is able to better dictate that. Like, that happens through hours of film study, yes, but there's a lot of feel to it that I don't know if you can teach.
Instinct, and you can't teach instinct.
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough. The topic of the offseason is going to be Giannis's jump shot, but I still don't think that matters that much. It was fine.
I think one of the major. Okay, so let's give some credit to the Raptors. Like, it sounds like we're entirely blaming the Bucks, and I don't think that's fair. I mean, I think the Bucks could have won that series had they performed to the same level they normally do. But the Raptors were we've never seen it before. People were talking about. I'm not going to go to that topic, but the Raptors were able to put a wall of defense around Giannis. And they were able to recover to shooters better than any team I had seen against the Bucks. And the key being have that wall of defenders and also recover to shooters very well enough. Like, they clearly looked at the passing lanes that Giannis looks for when the defense collapsed on him, and they were able to recover very well to those passing lanes. And I know that we had plenty of open shots in that series that we should have made. I believe the Raptors were 35% in the series. Does that sound right? Did you look at all about the 3-point percentage
from the Raptors? Shot 45% from 3 this series.
The whole series?
The whole series.
Okay. I must have been looking at overall playoffs or something. Obviously the Bucks weren't close to that. And I know they had plenty of open shots, but the Raptors defense, I think, did a really nice job. Would you agree with that?
You cut out right at the end there, so I'm just going to take a pause so you're easier able to cut it.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, would you agree with that the Raptors were able to do, especially recovering to shooters, better than any team we had seen?
I do. I think it's misleading to say that any team could do this to the Bucks.
Yeah,
the Raptors
no
have
way.
Kawhi Leonard. Most teams don't. They have good rim protector and their backup big Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, who's an incredibly heady defender. even if he struggled on offense this series. That said, I think a bit of the problem here is that the Bucks shooters are a bit overrated. Um, they had a lot of guys who shoot, 35, 36%, but they lacked that gunner type, that J.R. Smith type, that sort of knockdown microwave type that we talked about before the year, or not before the year. I think in one of our first podcasts we did. So
yeah, we
maybe
talked
2
about
months
it.
ago.
The closest guys they had to that were Lopez, but Lopez is still center. He's not like moving with the ball and creating pull-up looks or anything super dynamic. He's not quick. And the other guy was Mirotic, and they did have some of those looks with Mirotic, but as we know, he didn't make them. So
And sort of the difficulty with that is like their guards. Bledsoe is not that. His pull up is slow, and it doesn't even matter how fast it is because nobody's guarding it. But he's garbage, and he's the worst one, obviously.
he was a fine. Let's be clear though, he was a fine pull up shooter this year. He's never been a fine pull up shooter, but this year he was. What brought down his season percentage was his catch and shoot. He was terrible on catch and shoot this year.
He was bad at both when it mattered.
In the playoffs, yeah, no doubt.
So Brogdon has that slow release, doesn't really do much. Hill isn't that aggressive as a shooter. He would rather look to drive most of the time. And I think that's the biggest problem, is that so many of these Bucks want to drive. You have these plays where all of a sudden 3 of them are crashing, and it's like, why are you all doing this? This looks like the Jason Kidd offense again. We can't have 4 guys in the paint at one time. Yeah. And guys like Redick and Kyle Korver, they don't even try and go in the arc. They know what their job is. Yeah. The only time they go into the arc is to run across to the other side to get back on the other 3-point line. They never look for the ball when they're in the arc unless it's an accident. And I think that's sort of the problem here, is that the Bucks have a lot of guys who shoot 35, 36% from 3, but they don't have that many shooters. I don't know. Maybe that's sort of misleading. There was one really nice play they ran. It was a down screen, like a pin down on the right wing for Middleton, where he caught and fired from 3. They never run that. They ran like one nice 3-point play for Middleton.
They don't create a lot of set looks though for shooters. Like they don't do that.
Yeah, they just take what comes in the flow of the offense, and it's like, well, that only works if each of your guys on offense is equally good. And if Giannis and Middleton are your best guys, you have to run set stuff for them.
Yeah, and that's some analysts who were very skeptical of the Bucks were talking about how and it's true, how they had a very kind of a simple in and out offense. Giannis driving, Bledsoe driving, kicking out, and it worked because in the regular season and throughout the playoffs, because they were so good, but they ran into a team with a good enough defense to expose that, and it was a very simple in and out. They need to have more set plays for when they run into the gunk of playoff basketball, which is players trying a lot harder on defense and better personnel, better teams, and plenty of games to adjust and focus and look at. Like it's as simple as that.
Also, their guards just not great at the post-entry passes to sort of feed Giannis. Sometimes that would take. That just drives me insane. When they got Giannis on the block and he's there for like 10 seconds waiting for the feed, and Bledsoe's doing one of those things where he raises his arms and lowers his arms. He's moving the ball all over the place, and it's like, how can you be this bad at this? Like, you've been playing point guard your entire life. Have you never played with a big guy before? Maybe that's why Alex Len never turned out.
Wow, you're just going to town on Bledsoe today. Blame Alex Len on Bledsoe, like all of Alex Len. Oh, poor Alex Len. I just want to say that I just want to apologize to our few happy listeners out there about my Bucks in 5 prediction. I don't know. I got overconfident. I'm gonna leave it up to Al how he wants to put that, but I do want to say that I did worry more about the Raptors than the Celtics.
I still think the Celtics are the tougher matchup.
So what do you? So how would you differentiate? Like, why did we ultimately lose and struggle with and fail to adjust? I guess that being the key to the Raptors rather than the Celtics. Was it the Celtics just playing poorly, or not as good as the Raptors, who executed almost perfectly? But
No, I think the problem is that I did not understand how good Kawhi Leonard was going to be this series,
he was
and I didn't
historically
expect
good.
them to put him on Giannis.
Yeah, that's yeah. I think revisiting a series preview is kind of fun. I know we didn't talk about that, but yeah, I mean, think about who we talked about. We thought would guard Giannis. Like we thought, really, they would struggle with that. We said Gasol, and others said Pascal, and Pascal did guard Giannis for games 1 and 2, and 3, right? For the most part.
No, it was Leonard almost from the tip in Game 3.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah. So, and we didn't really talk about Kawhi doing that. And I don't know. I don't really know why. I think we just thought he was maybe a bit too small, but maybe that's really unfair to Kawhi, and I kind of feel shitty
Well,
about saying
I
that.
didn't expect them to put Kyle Lowry on Chris Middleton either. And the fact that Bud wouldn't attack that in the post, Chris is fine in the post. Like he's actually got some moves down there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't.
So
It's honestly tough to talk about. Like there are so many things that went wrong. Like we could literally make a list of like 20 things that did not go well in that series, and you would look at each one and be like, each of these played a factor. And when you're talking about so many one possession games, like the Bucks they've got flat out whooped in Game 4. In
Mhm.
Game 3, 5, and 6, they had a chance to win those games. And I think
Absolutely.
that's what's frustrating is that, if Mirotic knocks down one more three, if Giannis manages to make a few more free throws, which we haven't brought
Or
up yet.
play a few more minutes.
Yeah, or play 2 more minutes.
And play even at 75% capacity. Giannis is, sorry, bud, like he is better than the guy that you're going to throw out there who's 100% ready to play. Like that's which let's talk about Bud, because like I'm actually still frustrated and upset with the way he ran out rotations and lineups in that series. Like that was his logic. He wants Giannis to be 100% rested, but like you rested Giannis all season. You were great at load management, and you play him 37 minutes. What was it in the game that really matters? And he was the only player who was in the positive for that game. He's Giannis. He's going to lock it down defensively, even when he's struggling a little bit offensively. And he's going to be a concern for the defense because they need to create that wall. Like, that's so frustrating to me.
Maybe I'm being too harsh on Giannis, but I just don't see it. I don't like. To me, this wasn't a good Giannis series, and like, I'm not saying that you should bench him necessarily, but like, I understand if you're trying to maximize the minutes that you get from him, because like for me, there was a lot of times where the Raptors would swing the ball and it would look like it was Giannis's turn to close out across the court, and he wouldn't leave the paint.
He took some plays off. I remember that.
And like it happens 2, maybe 3 times a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I get that you're the star, but you're a little young to be LeBroning it out there.
Like I can see that we're going to be a little bit different on this, but even and I know Giannis struggled in that series, but I still think because of his general impact and gravity on the floor, I still think that he was a net positive every single time he was out there. He was better than anybody backing him up.
It's because Bud maximized his minutes. If he would have played more, he wouldn't have been a net positive every single minute.
I do not agree with that. I do not agree. No, you will never. You would have to have some serious evidence to get me to. Oh man, Budenholzer just really frustrated me, and the fact that he didn't. I don't know. Maybe hopefully he is going to look at maybe his approach to that series and rethink things, because when he would throw out those Ursan at center, that big yawn, clearly bored, but
no, I just yawn constantly. constantly. It has nothing to do with what I'm doing. Sometimes I'm talking and I just let out a massive yawn in the middle. Um, like Ursan played fine this series.
He was fine.
I don't know what to do about it. I would have been really interested to see. I would have loved to see some DJ Wilson lineups with him at center and to just see some different stuff.
Yeah, baby, DJ.
So many different things went wrong though. That's why it's tough for me to single any one thing. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, blaming a single thing is foolish. It always is, in like every aspect of losing, typically in basketball. But I just think that Budenholzer was my number one concern. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's there's 20 plus things we could look at. It remains puzzling to me that after I was so happy with the way they were able to. I was really worried about the Celtics series after Game 1, and they adjusted so well. And I guess Brad Stevens didn't counter adjust the way Nick Nurse did. By the way, like Nick Nurse, that was my boy preseason. That's who I wanted the Bucks to get, and he outcoached Bud in this series. He most certainly did.
And yet, the Raptors probably don't win the series if Fred VanVleet doesn't go 14 of 17. If he goes 10 of 17.
Wait, so don't you mean Michael Jordan? Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about Fred VanVleet. Sorry, they're pretty similar to me, but yeah, I heard you.
So no, they're not similar. Fred VanVleet can actually shoot the 3 ball. Michael Jordan wishes he was that good of a 3-point shooter at his age. Giannis made more threes than that bald gambler did in his age 24 season.
Crying Jordan. Didn't Giannis make more threes than like Kobe did in the majority of his playoff series? I mean, different era.
I actually think that's true too. Brook Lopez more threes this year than Kobe Bryant ever had in a single season, and more blocks than Kevin Garnett ever had in a single season.
Were you the one to post that on Twitter? I saw that.
I quote tweeted it, and for some reason I got 50 favorites, and the original one didn't. The original one blew up too. It got like 700 retweets and stuff like that. But like, I was like, why are people favoriting mine? Like, I was just quoting it. I said, I think my quote said, this is one of the most impressive statistics I've ever seen.
It's super
people
cool.
are like, favorite.
I do not want to see that because I don't want I don't want his agent taking that into meetings. I can't handle that.
Yeah. We'll talk about the offseason on our next pod.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to talk individually about each player. Just short sentence. This is just for me. I thought just a quick evaluation of each player in the series, operating as best they could. I thought Middleton was generally good. I think he could do to be more active offensively. Like he didn't particularly miss a ton of shots, but
how much of that is Middleton and how much of that is systemic?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he could do to be more active, but it's pretty obvious that systemically it was an issue. Like you just talked about not running
feature the matchups in the post against Kyle Lowry, and that they run the 3-point plays. Yeah, I'm mad.
Yeah, you're right. No, it's very upsetting. And Chris, I think he was generally good. I think defensively, I expect it, but then again, Kawhi that was a historic performance in that series. He was otherworldly. Lowry was better than he had been all playoffs and in general in playoffs. Fred VanVleet was insane. Norman Powell continues to put up amazing numbers against the Bucks for some reason. Serge Ibaka operated off the bench better than he was better than he had been in a while.
He was better against the Bucks 2 years ago. Marc Gasol and Danny Green were garbage too.
It
goes both ways.
I thought Marc Gasol was fine. Like he hit. By the way, he hit.
How many points did he score this series? Like 28.
But he hit timely 3-pointers. Like I talked about his ability to shoot, and he did shoot pretty well. Like he hit timely 3-pointers. We were worried because he was only shot like 1.9 a game, but they made him more involved as a 3-point shooter. Nurse made that adjustment, understanding the Bucks struggle with the pick and pop big. Like
I don't know if Nurse made that adjustment or if Marc Gasol and the Bucks defense made that adjustment.
I don't know. Gasol has always looked like a reluctant shooter with the Raptors until this series. but
'Cause you have to play the Bucks.
yeah. But yeah, no, Gasol and Green weren't that great, but you had all these contributions and improvements across the board with the Raptors. But
So in one sentence, Middleton, good.
Middleton, good, but not great. Yes. Giannis, I thought good, but not even close to what you expect from him. Bledsoe, terrible. Consequently, the guy we extended, yay. Brogdon, I thought Brogdon played pretty well. I think he was bad in one particular game.
He disappeared in game 5 and he scored 4 points.
Yeah, but I thought, especially coming off the injury, I thought Brogdon was way better than I expected in general since he came back from the injury. George Hill, I thought he was pretty good. Mirotic, terrible. Lopez, I thought was perhaps the most consistently impressive player for the Bucks in this series. Am I wrong?
No.
Which, like, I thought he was operating with what the defense gave him really well, despite the fact we didn't really run a lot of like set plays for him when he was doing, even though he has been doing really well. I thought Ersan, like you said, played fine. Pat in generally not good, and remains the player whenever I criticize on Twitter, I get attacked. It's the only player that I criticize on Twitter and I get attacked. I don't understand why. Who am I forgetting? Anyone? That's it, right? There was no other impact minutes from any other Buck, right?
Did you say Ersan?
Yeah, I said Ersan good. Like he was good, but he wasn't great.
He drew some timely charges.
I think he missed way more 3-pointers than he typically does. I mean, almost all the Bucks did. Like, I guess we shouldn't expect we shouldn't expect this team to shoot super fantastic in the first place. Like you said, they were 14th in the regular season. That's fine, I guess. Were they number 2 or number 1 in attempts behind the Rockets?
2.
Number 2 behind the Rockets, but I don't know. Apologize to our listeners. I know I'm super rambly in this. And it's probably because it's a pretty devastating loss to me. This might ever happen again, so I'm all over the place, and I apologize.
No, it's a tough loss, and I think we've covered it pretty well. Overall, would you call the series the season a success?
Yeah, but it sure isn't memorable. It's not. I expected. I'm just gonna flat out like mid-season expectations. I expected finals. I did, and I didn't expect them to win the finals. But so it's a disappointment to me ultimately. Like it is. So because I understand based on 2012 Oklahoma City Thunder and 07 LeBron, like Cavs, like this may never happen again, especially with free agency with all these players. Like this may never happen again. This was our opportunity. This was our chance. And so many things went wrong. So yeah, disappointment. Success, but I guess within the team being better than they have been in a long time, but disappointment.
I'd say it's a success. Every year that you don't win the title is going to be a disappointment in some way. Unless you planned on being bad and then you won the lottery. So that's my take. It's not very nuanced. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. I don't know. As for the season, it was a blast. It was fun to watch the Bucks outscore so many opponents. The Celtics series in particular was probably the most satisfying bit of Bucks basketball in my entire lifetime that I remember being a fan. Being able to come back after that game 1 and have the gentleman's sweep, that was beautiful. I don't know. All this talk about the Bucks and the Raptors has brought back all these memories of the Raptors series that I was trying to push down, and now I'm sad again and mad.
I think it was a great season. I think we'll remember it forever. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't have that many thoughts. I actually think the Bucks will win more regular season games next year, but very few people agree with me.
60 plus. Ooh, that's going to be fun. This I am super excited to talk off season with you. I hope our listeners are equally as excited.
The offseason is the most exciting part of basketball. Nobody actually enjoys watching basketball. We're just here for the drama.
You're not wrong. It's a
I don't even
guilty-
watch the games. I just fire off tweets looking at the box scores.
Oh boy. I don't know. I think we
You think
Put
we
a-
did it? You think we put a nice bow on this season?
it's a pretty ugly bow, but it's a bow.
Ready to smash the bottle of champagne on the boat and kiss her off into the harbor.
That's a wrap, folks. I don't really know what else to talk about.
Oh, I know. I got one thing. Follow me on Twitter at JonesFashiz. I'm trying to get to 1,500 followers. I'm currently at 1,452. I tweet some delicious stuff. I keep tweeting "he gone" in regards to any Buck in free agency, especially after they say things like "I want to die in Milwaukee," "I want to spend the rest of my basketball career here." I quote it and I tweet "he gone," and it's supposed to be sarcastic. Nobody's picking up on that. That's very disappointing.
There's your shameless promotion from the much more popular half of this podcast than me. I've been sitting at 340 followers for probably like 7 months. I'm definitely gonna say it's because I don't give in to give the common people what they want. I stick with my guns, but that's not true. I'm just not as
I don't let anybody criticize coaching. I tell basketball like it is. You might see me in some team issue apparel. I just know more about basketball than you.
Obviously, you need to get your Bucks quarter zip so you can look really like intellectual.
I answer phone calls on my watch.
I'm glad we're talking about the same thing now. I'm glad we're referencing the same thing. Oh man, we need to bring on Brian Oranger at this point to talk Bucks basketball, so we can get that scout's perspective. Anyways,
and the
podcast. Yeah, I needed the laughs though. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for following us. This last, I don't know, I guess it's been about 2 months since we started. I hope you guys are enjoying our BS. We're certainly enjoying it, and we value all of our original listener group. And we'll be back to talk off season next time. For myself and Alex Juno, who's you're at June's Prestige still, and I'm at Bill Canzaneri. Well, this is a terrible outro. That's it. I'm just gonna do it. I'm editing it. Catch us next time. Bye-bye.